Okay, so let's finish up section 1.3 notes. So you should have your notebook out, and we're just continuing where we left off earlier, where we had talked about midpoint and we did these two midpoint examples. So if you need to, through any of this, you can pause at any time. So the last main idea that we're going to talk about is length in the coordinate plane. And to find the length of a segment in the coordinate plane, you're going to use the distance formula. And so the directions are going to say this. They'll say find the length of segment, blah, blah, whatever it is. And they'll give you some coordinates for it. So they're not going to come right out and say use distance formula. So that's the connection you'll have to make. And so that should be a review. You talked about this in algebra. So this is the distance formula. And so it's that big square root, and then you do in the first parentheses, you subtract the x values, and then you'll square that. So even if this comes out to be negative and you square it, it's still going to give you a positive number under the square root. Plus, the second set of parentheses, you will subtract the y values and then square that. And so again, this number will always come out to be positive. And so, because you know from last year, you cannot take the square root of a negative. So if you get a negative number under here somewhere, you've done something incorrectly. All right, so the next example, I want you to pause if you need to copy both of these, however you need to do that. But we're going to do this example, and it's an example that you probably saw maybe on your homework, and maybe you weren't sure how to do it. So I'm going to give you a moment to copy that down, and then we're going to work it out. Okay, so the endpoints of two segments are given. Tell whether the segments are congruent. So I know segment AB, A is at 0, 2, B is at negative 3, 8, and segment CD, C is at negative 2, 2, and D is at 0, 4, 0, negative 4. And so I'm going to have to figure out the length of both of these, because remember the definition of congruent segments says that the two segments have the same length. And so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do AB first. To find that length, I'm using the distance formula. So my two x values here are 0 and negative 3. Doesn't matter the order that you subtract them in, so I'll just do negative 3 minus 0 in parentheses squared plus the y values in the parentheses. I'll do 8 minus 2. And so now I know I've got my big square root still, don't lose that. Negative 3 minus 0 is negative 3. So I have negative 3 squared plus 8 minus 2, 6 squared. And so negative 3 squared is going to be positive 9. And 6 squared should be 36. And so when you add those up, what do I get? I should get the square root of 45. Now you could do the decimal on that if you want to, but I'm just going to leave it as is so that I can then now do CD. So now let's find how long CD is. So my x values, I'll do the other order, so it doesn't matter the order. So I'm going to do negative 2 minus 0 in parentheses squared plus 2 minus negative 4 squared. And so now that will be negative 2 in parentheses squared plus, that'll be now plus 4, so that'll be 6 squared. So that's going to be 4 plus 36, which is the square root of 40. So are the segments congruent? No. So then I would say not congruent. So a problem like this, if I asked you this on a quiz or a test, would be 3 points. I'd give you 1 point for finding this length, 1 point for finding this length, and then 1 point for saying whether they are congruent or not. Okay? And so this concludes the notes from section 1.3. We weren't too far from being finished. So then now you're going to take the 1.3 quiz. After I'm going to go over a couple of homework questions that I think maybe were the hard ones. And then after that, you'll take the quiz, but I'll let you use your notes this time for this mini quiz. You still have to work by yourself, but if you took good notes, you can use them for this section 1.3. Plus, it has the formulas in it. I don't expect that you have the formulas memorized yet, but by the day of the test next Friday, you will not be given the distance formula and you will not be given the midpoint formula. Those are the only two formulas we'll have for this chapter. So make sure that you know how to use them and you know what they are by the day of the test, which is next Friday, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. Okay?